Welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Handyman Business YouTube channel. Hope everybody's doing well. Spring has sprung. Still a little chill in the air. I've got a pork shoulder, a wild hog pork shoulder on the smoker. It's been on there 3 hours. It's probably got 4 or 5 more hours to go minimum. That's some stuff I'm going to be introducing to my third YouTube channel. Little barbecuing with you know who. Caulk gun hats, caulk gun t-shirts, caulk gun coffee mugs. Come and take it. Link for all this will be in the description. February, I uploaded my last video on this channel. It's been a while. And I discussed my strategy to get out of the manual labor industry. I went over a timeline of the first 20 years, getting your skill set, transitioning into being self-employed, and where I'm at now is trying to get out of it, trying to find a way where I don't have to break my back. Speaking of which, I'm on my 4th day of oral steroids because they think I have a herniated disc in my lower back. I've got this lightning bolt shooting pain down my left leg that it literally puts me to the floor. Today is my first day of like getting up and moving around. It's just a dull pain that hits me in the calf right now. Anyways, I might talk about my injuries in a different video, but it is relevant. 45 years old, herniated disc, pretty much protocol for this line of work. This last stage in the timeline, I'm not an expert on. I'm learning it. I wanted to share what I've learned, share what I'm doing. It is not expert advice. And I've kind of stated that from the beginning on this YouTube channel. I'm just sharing what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and what I'm doing. A lot of guys have taken that advice and have reached out and said, hey, it actually works. This section here, this getting out, I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the starting process. I want to be out of manual labor, like consistent manual labor, in the next 2 years, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'll probably be going to at least age 50. Current state of the economy has something to do with that. We're at 8.5 inflation. What that means is even your good investments, if they're earning 8.5% a year, they're just keeping up with inflation. I've had to adjust my lifestyle. I'm going to start working more. I got to be prepared. I'm still young, 45, and I'm not ready to retire. YouTube could die tomorrow, and all those customers that I kind of filtered away. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've got another YouTube channel. It's called the Handyman. We're at 437,000 subscribers. I get about a million to 2 million views a month, and I'm always uploading some project. So over the last year or so, I've been very selective about the customers I take on, so I can film and take my time, and they're okay with me filming and putting it all out there on the internet for me to make money on YouTube. Some of the customers that were like really fast-paced, a lot of the property management gigs where I was going into strangers' houses, things like that, kind of stopped working for them. But I got to focus on getting back to that. If we've learned anything in the last few years, is that anything can happen. Crazy things can happen. You could have a thriving, successful business, and somebody can come chain the doors to your business, force you to stay in your house. It's craziness what's happened. The amount of emphasis that I'm putting on backup plans, emergency funds, things like that, I'm scaling way up because you just don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you where my money is. And you can tell me. I know there's a lot of financial gurus out there because they always chime in the comments. And I don't doubt that they know more than me. And I'm just taking an educated guess. I'm relying on other people's advice. I'm going to get out my phone, log into my accounts, and I'm just going to show you where I have my money. My income, it stays in my business checking account for less than 24 hours before I transfer it out. I keep a small balance of around $18,000 to $20,000 split between a business checking and a business savings account. And I keep that there for materials that I have to buy for the projects that I work on. So we're just going to run down the list. And the first one I want to talk about is an SEP IRA. And I used to know how this worked, but it is a certain percentage of your salary. So I'm an S corporation and I take a salary, which is another percent of how much my business brings in. My accountant that does both my books and my taxes, he does all the math and says, okay, this is how much you can contribute to your SEP IRA based on all these percentages. This year I'm putting dollars into an SEP IRA. I already have $25,000 into an SEP IRA. What that's going to do is lower your taxable income. I've got college savings accounts. Then I have a traditional IRA, which I have it set up as an automatic payment of only $500 a month. It comes out of my business checking account, goes right into my traditional IRA. Now, when you make a certain dollar figure, that traditional IRA, that $5,000, I believe no longer is a tax deduction. I don't know exactly what the dollar figure is. I have taxable investment accounts for all my kids. Every kid I give $1,000 a month to. They don't know it. They're not old enough to understand all this. So every kid gets $1,000 transferred, automatic, like an automatic payment out of my business checking account to their investment account. You know, I got to take care of the basics, which is retirement funds, which can have a tax benefit, and my kids. And then now we're working on my retirement. We're gonna go see what I have in stocks. Stocks, I've got a few ways to do this. I gamble with money on both Webull and Robinhood. It's high risk investments. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'll also talk about how I trade cryptocurrency in just a few minutes. But this stuff here is safer. I have it in Edward Jones. I believe it's way more secure than Robinhood or Webull. Webull's owned by China. It's kind of crazy that's how it works. But so I bought some GoPro stock. I've got some Starbucks. I got Walt Disney. And I also have this Medtronic PLC. Don't even really know what it is. It's called MDT. So this is where the bulk of my early retirement funds are at. They're called ETFs, the Clean Energy ETF, QCLN. Then I have an iShares Metals and Mining ETF. It's a PICK. And I have an iShares S&P 500 Growth ETF, IVW. Then a VANIC ETF, Semiconductor ETF, SMH. Vanguard Dividend, it's VIG. Then a Vanguard Extended Market ETF, VXF. Dividend Markets ETF, VEA. And then once again, another Vanguard Emerging Markets ETF, that is VWO. So I have some money spread out through there. That is what I'm hoping will give me returns to live off of. Between when my body gives out, when I stop doing a lot of manual labor, and to the time when retirement funds kick in. I think that's like 67 years old. I can't do this till I'm 67 years old. Some people are built differently, but not me. But I've got a mutual fund account. That's where I keep liquid cash. It's not completely liquid because I can't just take it, but it sits in a money market account so that I'm ready to buy whenever an opportunity comes up. If the stock market crashes, I've got $1,000 on hand to buy. If I were to come across a real estate investment, I at least have $1,000 to put down on an investment property. But it's just sitting there. I haven't touched it for 8 to 10 months. That's something that I have learned a lot of really wealthy people have, is they have a certain percent of their net worth in liquid cash, ready to take advantage of a downturn. A lot of people get upset when the economy's in the hole and interest rates are up and this and that, the stock market crashed. Well, all those wealthy people have a certain amount of money set aside ready to take advantage of the downs, so that when things are down, they've got money to act. That's something that I've never had in the past. And hindsight's always 20/20. Oh man, if I only had a little bit of money saved up back in 2008 when you could buy a McMansion for $50. And I didn't have $50 back then. But having some liquid cash ready to take advantage of a downturn in the real estate market or the stock market. Hey Google, what's today's date?
It's Saturday, April 16th, 2022.
April 16th. So my tax payments have to be postmarked on Monday. And man, it was a big surprise. Apparently I made more in 2021 than I did in 2020, and my estimated quarterly payments were nowhere near enough to pay for 2021's income tax. So if you're in need of some extra cash, I've got a solution. Today's video is sponsored by North One. North One is business banking entirely on your phone. Well, right now, North One is giving away $500 to 10 businesses and $5,000 to one lucky business. So with North One, you can easily move money and make payments in a flash. That includes ACH, wire, and card payments. Get access to your cash and load money into your account at locations nationwide. Built-in budgeting tools to help you plan for business expenses like tax, rent, payroll. If you guys are still doing taxes yourself, you can tie your account to apps like QuickBooks and FreshBooks to streamline your accounting. You can sync with payment processing apps like Stripe and PayPal to get all your payments in one place. With their app and debit card, you'll never have to walk into a bank branch ever again. To enter this giveaway, you have to open an account and put $50 in there. You got to make sure you do it by April 24th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The drawing will happen on the 18th, and winners will be notified by the 22nd via email. Link will be in the description. Go get entered for your chance to win $5,000. I know I could use an extra $5,000. Hey, I could even use an extra $500. Come across these financial YouTube channels that say, make your own coffee, bring your own lunch, don't go out to dinner as much, and just whittle away, and you'll have an extra $500 at the end of the year. Now, if you are dead broke, and I've been there dead broke, where I had no real bank account, I got rid of my credit cards and I started doing cash jobs, putting those $100 bills, stacking them up until they equaled $1,000, putting them in an envelope, licking it, sticking it, and closing it up, and never opening it again until I actually put it in a bank. Where was I going with that? But those little teeny tiny sacrifices, when you get to a certain point, they're insignificant. A $500 a year, $1,000 a year, even $2,000 a year is not going to do anything for the age at which you retire. It's big purchases. Putting off buying that new pickup truck, which is $100,000, or it's, you're going to be paying $6,000 to $8,000 a year in payments and who knows how much in interest. So I've adjusted my lifestyle a little bit. A year ago, stock market was screaming. All that money that I put into the stock market and in these ETFs and everything in 2020 was just roaring, just taking off like crazy, and I felt confident. I splurged a little bit. I'm backing down on my splurges. I really only spend money on things that my family can enjoy, cutting back on things that are just for me. I had mentioned earlier that I have a Robinhood and a Webull account where I do my gambling. Those are my higher risk investments. The stuff that I keep in Edward Jones is a little bit lower risk, meaning that they're going to have a lower return. Their value is going to increase at a lower percentage every year or every decade. The lower the risk, the slower and smaller the value increase of those assets that you own. So you need a longer period of time, 10, 15, 20 years for those lower risks to really increase in value and pay off. Now the high risk stuff, like throwing some money at AMC. So I dabble in, I wouldn't say day trading, but I've bought some Tesla, I own some Twitter, Apple, Amazon, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, whatever you want to call it, Litecoin, Ethereum Classic. I've got some that I'm holding on and hoping that someday it goes to a specific number. And then I have another section of cryptocurrency that I am glued to, just watching, going up and down, waiting for these price points that my research says to buy and sell. Pretty much broke even on the cryptocurrency. I've made some bad investments and I've made some good investments. The more I get educated on the whole cryptocurrency trading thing, I think in the long run, I might make a little bit of money. Now keep in mind, there's high risk involved in that. There's a lot of people that own a lot of Bitcoin that they bought in the $50,000, $55,000, high 40s. They all took a loss. Hopefully that wasn't a lot of rambling and it helped somebody that is young. If I had known this when I was in my 20s, I would be years and years ahead of where I'm at now. I am catching up, making up for lost time. And unfortunately, that is very, very common with construction workers. They just have never taken the time to get educated on finances, financial freedom, retirement, any of that. They just go to work, come home, go to work, come home. A lot of them work paycheck to paycheck. They're lucky they're a union guy and they have some sort of plan in place, but most people don't work for unions that are self-employed or carpenters, electricians, plumbers. Something that is so interesting is you always know when you get a city slicker commenting on your videos, they say, I'm a licensed master painter. I'm a master carpenter, or I'm a journeyman elevator operator. But in most of the country, there is no licensing for any of that. There's a plumber's license and an electrician's license. And so I get a big chuckle out of how these big cities, bigger than the city that I live in, have scammed you into paying for a license to become a trim carpenter.
I'm a licensed trim carpenter. I'm a licensed hammer mechanic.
I'm going to say it one more time. I'm not an expert. I'm learning. I'm just sharing what I've learned, what I'm doing, and it could change. And I will update you on how things go. Only talk to people that have money and they're actively doing something with their money, and get feedback from them. Loudest squawkers are people that don't have money. They have no plan. They have no investments. They just watch too many YouTube videos and they didn't spend enough time working to make enough money to actually do something with. All right, that's all for now. Check the links in the description. Check the link for today's video sponsor. That's also in the description. Goodbye.